For nearly 2 decades, Rachael Ray has been one of the most recognizable faces in American television. Her warm smile, her contagious laughter, and her gift for making even the most intimidating recipes feel effortless turned her into something far greater than a celebrity chef. She became a fixture in millions of homes, a trusted companion who showed up every day through the television screen and made people feel like they belonged in the kitchen. But behind that luminous public presence, a quiet and deeply personal storm has been brewing, one that has shaken the foundations of her life and forced the people who love her most to confront an unimaginable reality. At the center of that storm stands John Cusimano, Rachael's husband of nearly 20 years, a man who has always preferred the background to the spotlight, who has loved his wife fiercely and quietly, and who is now, by all accounts, navigating the most painful chapter of their shared life together. Those who know John describe a man carrying a weight that words struggle to capture, a man who is holding on with everything he has while quietly coming to terms with the possibility of a future he never wanted to imagine. To understand the depth of what this couple is facing, you have to go back to the beginning, back to who Rachael Ray truly is, and how this woman built something extraordinary from almost nothing. Rachael was born on August 25, 1968, in Glens Falls, New York, into a family where food was never just food. It was tradition. It was love. It was the language through which her family communicated everything that mattered. Her mother, Elsa Scuderi, carried a rich Sicilian heritage that filled their home with the aromas of garlic, olive oil, and slow-cooked sauces. From the time Rachael was old enough to stand at a counter, she was watching, learning, absorbing the idea that a meal prepared with care was one of the most powerful acts of generosity a person could offer. When the family relocated to Lake George, New York, that connection to food only deepened. Her family ran restaurants in the area, and Rachael was not a passive observer. She was in the thick of it, helping out, learning the rhythms of a working kitchen, understanding that feeding people was both an art and a responsibility. She graduated from Lake George Junior Senior High School and then took her ambitions to New York City, where she worked at Macy's, eventually managing their gourmet food department. The city was exciting, but it was also unforgiving. After a traumatic mugging experience that left her shaken to her core, Rachael made the difficult decision to leave the city and return to the quiet familiarity of upstate New York. That decision, born out of fear and necessity, turned out to be the pivot point of her entire career. Back in the Adirondacks, she took a management role at the Sagamore Resort and began teaching cooking classes built around a simple but revolutionary premise that anyone, regardless of skill level, could put a delicious meal on the table in 30 minutes. The response was immediate and overwhelming. People were hungry, not just for good food, but for permission to believe that cooking didn't have to be complicated or intimidating. Rachael gave them that permission with warmth and joy and zero condescension. A local television station noticed, then the Food Network noticed, and when 30-minute meals premiered in 2001, Rachael Ray became a household name almost overnight. Over the course of more than 2 decades, she expanded into a daytime talk show, a lifestyle magazine, a pet food line called Nutrish, which channeled its proceeds toward animal rescue organizations, and countless other ventures. She won multiple Daytime Emmy Awards. She built an empire. But more than any of those... And then there is John. John Cusimano was born on August 19, 1967 in New York, and from early on he demonstrated the rare ability to excel in worlds that seem, on the surface, to have very little in common with each other. The band built a loyal following, released albums, and earned the opportunity to open for legendary acts including Motorhead and the New York Dolls. Rachael and John met through mutual friends in the early 2000s, and when they married in 2005, they chose Italy as the setting, a country that meant something to both of them, and a location they would return to every year to celebrate their anniversary. In interviews over the years, Rachael has spoken about John with an openness and tenderness that made it clear this was not a Hollywood marriage of convenience or circumstance. This was a genuine partnership. She called him her rock, She called him her best friend. She described their relationship as the one constant she could always return to, no matter how chaotic everything else became. John, for his part, was never interested in riding Rachel's fame. He made occasional appearances on her shows, charming audiences with his mixology skills and easy confidence, but he never chased the spotlight. He let his wife shine while he quietly managed his own career, his music, and his devotion to the woman he had chosen. People who know them describe a relationship defined not by grand gestures, but by consistency, by the daily decision to show up for each other, to choose each other, to build something lasting. That foundation was tested in 2013 when tabloid allegations of infidelity surfaced, with claims aimed at John that generated significant media attention. Rachael addressed the rumors directly and emphatically, standing by her husband without hesitation and dismissing the allegations as false. The couple presented a united front, and they moved through that storm together, as they had moved through every other challenge, side by side without flinching. But what they are facing now is different. This is not a tabloid rumor. This is not a controversy that can be denied or outlasted. This is something that settled into Rachel's body quietly, without announcement, and began changing the texture of her days before she or anyone around her fully understood what was happening. For a long time, Rachael attributed what she was feeling to the relentless pace of her career. The exhaustion made sense. She had always operated at a speed that would have worn most people down years earlier. The fatigue, the moments when her energy seemed to flicker, the times when tasks that had always come naturally suddenly required more effort than they should, all of it seemed explainable, manageable, temporary. Rachael had always been the kind of person who pushed through. It was essentially her defining characteristic. It was John who saw it differently. Living alongside someone gives you access to the small details that the outside world never sees, the slight changes in how a person moves, the subtle differences in how they speak, the quiet moments when something in their eyes reveals what they are carrying. John saw those changes in Rachael, and he refused to look away from them. Gently but persistently, he encouraged her to see a doctor. Rachael is not someone who slows down easily, and the idea of stepping away from her commitments, even briefly, didn't come naturally. But John pressed on, because he knew. On some level, he already knew. The medical evaluation that followed delivered news that reframed everything. The details of Rachel's diagnosis have remained largely private, a reflection of her deep instinct to protect the people she loves from worry, and her desire to be remembered for the joy she has brought into the world, rather than for her suffering. But those close to the couple have spoken carefully about the gravity of what they are dealing with, and the weight of those words is impossible to ignore. This is serious. This is life-altering. And for a woman who has spent her entire adult life pouring energy and light into the world around her, the adjustment has been profound. In the months since the diagnosis, Rachael and John have retreated, at least partially, from the demands of public life. Their lake house in upstate New York, a place Rachael has long described as her truest sanctuary, the location where she feels most herself, has become their refuge. It is where they have always gone to decompress, to reconnect, to remember who they are beneath the cameras and the commitments. Now it serves a deeper purpose. It is where they are holding on to each other. Friends describe Rachael as characteristically resilient, still cooking, still laughing, still pouring herself into the moments that matter. She has never been someone who allows hardship to extinguish her spirit, and that hasn't changed. But the people closest to John tell a different story, one of a man who is carrying an ache that he works very hard to conceal. He remains strong in Rachel's presence because that is what she needs, and because that is who he is. But in the quiet moments, in the spaces between conversations and the pauses before sleep, he is grappling with the possibility of a world without the woman who has been his center of gravity for the better part of 20 years. That is what people mean when they say John is saying goodbye. Not that he has given up, not that he has stopped fighting alongside his wife, but that he is loving her with a new and tender urgency, the way people love when they have been reminded that nothing lasts forever. Every meal they share carries extra meaning. Every laugh between them lands a little softer and a little deeper. Every ordinary moment has been elevated into something precious simply by the knowledge that ordinary moments cannot be taken for granted. Rachael Ray's story has always been, at its core, a story about resilience. She rebuilt her life after trauma. She constructed a career from cooking classes in the Adirondacks. She weathered public controversy with her head high and her dignity intact. She has always, somehow, found a way through. And John Cusimano's story has always been one of quiet, unwavering strength. The man in the background who made everything possible, who chose love over fame, who showed up every single day in ways the world rarely saw. Now those two stories have converged at their most difficult point, and the world is watching with hearts full of hope. Rachael's fans, the millions of people who have spent years feeling welcomed into her kitchen, comforted by her voice, inspired by her spirit, are rallying around her with the same warmth she has spent decades offering them. It is, in its own way, a beautiful thing to witness. But beauty and heartbreak are not mutually exclusive. John knows that. Rachael knows that. And in the quiet intimacy of the life they have built together away from the cameras, away from the noise they are facing, this truth together, holding on, loving fiercely, and refusing to waste a single moment. Whatever comes next, one thing is certain. The love between Rachael Ray and John Cusimano has never been louder than it is right now. In this silence, in this struggle, in this gentle and heartbreaking goodbye, that is also, in every way that matters, a declaration of how deeply they have always meant to each other.